Hey guys, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another video. This one is me sharing some really exciting news with you guys. Maybe you already know, maybe you don't, but we're getting Throne of Eldraine next week. Now, I'm stating that it's next week because there is going to be one of the new Eldraine events appearing next week, and they usually have the set come out a day or a few days before one of the new events comes out. So that's pretty exciting. If you don't want some of the things they've announced spoiled for you, you just want to go into everything blind and be surprised, then you should stop watching this now. So with 3.9, we're getting Throne of Eldraine, and along with Throne of Eldraine, we're getting a lot of very important bug fixes and quality of life fixes to the game. So in general changes, if you've been playing with cards that increase mana bonus, or you've played against cards that increase mana bonus, or even if you've attempted to use Karn, right? The animation for increasing your mana bonus takes so long that those cards have been borderline unplayable. Like it takes so long. And so the animation will now be faster and occur simultaneously alongside other gameplay actions. So the mana bonus increase should no longer slow down your game to the extent that you just don't want to play cards that do that, or planeswalkers. So that's a really nice quality of life improvement. There's also an improvement to the AI that I think is very good for the game. So if you've had the AI cast kill spells on their own creatures, or if they've got a burn spell burning their own creatures instead of burning you or one of your creatures, or even buffing one of your creatures when they could buff one of their own, the AI will do that significantly less often with this update. So the AI should actually play the decks a little bit more like they're intended to be played. And I think that's actually really good for the game, right? It's actually going to be a lot more balanced for just not feeling like you won off of some silly gimmick that you shouldn't have won for, right? I mean, you'll still likely win most of the games because you have a very distinct advantage as a player, but nonetheless, that's a really big improvement to the game. We're going to get 3 new planeswalkers. So one of them is going to be a new Garruk. This Garruk is black-green, and I'm going to go ahead and say it now. It's by far the best green-black planeswalker that will be available in the game. So let's go over the abilities and why is this planeswalker going to be so amazing. So first up, the 3 abilities have fairly reasonable costs, but if you look at the first and second ability, you've got the ability to destroy vanguards and creatures just from your planeswalker. So the first ability, Hunting Pack, is going to create 2 Vicious Wolf tokens, and those tokens down here are 2/2 Berserkers that have the ability, whenever a creature you control dies or loses a reinforcement, you gain 1 loyalty and your black or green vanguards gain 1 shield. Then an opposing vanguard support loses 3 shields. So for that 9 ability, you can start whittling down your opponent's vanguards, and you'll also get a 4/4 wolf with Berserker, which is, decent. At the very least, it'll help you take care of some vanguards. Now, Stalk the Prey here is an incredible ability, and this is one of the things that really makes this planeswalker shine. So you destroy target creature, then gain life equal to its toughness, and draw 2 cards. So there's a lot to this. One, it's destroy target creature, so you can destroy your opponent's or your own. You can use this as a planeswalker to destroy your own creatures for objectives if you need creatures lost, whereas something like Bolas 1 is only going to destroy opponent's creatures. So that's big. Next, it gives you life equal to that creature's toughness, which is in many cases going to be a fairly substantial life gain. And so it's also going to enable you to play multiple games in a row with this planeswalker. And then on top of that, it's also going to draw you 2 cards. So green and black generally both struggle with card draw, and this gives you reliable removal, life gain, and card draw in one very reasonably costed ability. So it's amazing. And then finally, that third ability, Cursed Predation. So you create an improved Cursed Predation token. I'll go over that in just a quick second. And 5 of those Vicious Wolf tokens. So you get a 10/10 wolf with Berserker, and that improved Curse of Predation right here is going to state, while you control the creature with the greatest power, your creatures gain Berserker, Trample, and Death Touch. So, I mean, your creatures are just going to kill everything that your opponent plays. And if you give them First Strike, they're just going to kill everything even more. And then also, at the end of your turn, your non-human creatures get +4/+4 permanently. So all of those abilities are really good. That improved Curse Predation is a fairly decent ability, but that Stalk the Prey is just incredible. The mana gains are okay. The health pool is very good. This is a Planeswalker that you should absolutely get as soon as possible when you can and level it up to 60. So you'll want this one, definitely. Oko. Now, Oko is busted in Paper Magic. That is not true for this game. No, not busted in this one. So let's go over Oko in Puzzle Quest. So in Puzzle Quest, Oko is going to have 3 abilities that are all reasonably costed, right? 6, 12, 15 isn't bad at all. But the first ability is going to be create 3 food tokens. Those are supports that will gain life when they're destroyed. And you'll create a Fey Treat token. So the Fey Tree token over here says, whenever a food token you control is destroyed or loses a shield, fetch the first card from your opponent's library. I hate most cards that fetch things from my opponent's library because I find that a lot of decks that I run into are not very great. So there's a lot of cards in there that I just don't want to use. Yeah, I find that support to be fairly weak. Now, with the food tokens coming out and the Fey Treat token, I mean, you could argue you could be getting 3 cards for using an ability that is only 6 Planeswalker mana, but it's really subpar. Really, really subpar, right? That card's not gaining mana. You don't know if your opponent's playing some gimmicky pauper deck or some other form of silly shenanigans. Not great. Fey Transformation. Exile target opposing creature and an opposing artifact support. Then your opponent creates a food token. Okay, so that's actually a pretty good ability, right? Because you're going to be exiling an opponent's creature and an artifact support on top of that. So you're getting 2 things exiled. They're not going to the graveyard, which is fantastic. And your opponent then creates a food token. That's no big deal. Now, that third ability is a bit confusing, so I want to go over that with you guys. Reality Swap. Create a high Fey market token. The first 3 cards in your hand gain half of their mana. So the first 3 cards in your hand gaining half the mana is pretty simple, but this token is a bit confusing. So it reads, at the end of your turn, exchange control of the first creature you own and control and the first creature you don't own and control. So there are 2 parts to it. The second part, if you can't, exchange the first artifact support you own without mana from your hand for this first support from your opponent's hand. Then creatures you control but don't own get +4/+4. So what does all of that mean? So there's a difference between cards that you control and cards that you own. If you've ever used the card Atali, you will know that you steal cards from your opponent, and if you've used it in the Dragon War on the bottom right node for Bolas, where you have to only use cards that cost 11 or more, I'm sure that your Atali has attacked and you've stolen a card from your opponent's deck that costs less than 11 mana, but you don't lose the objective for having stolen that card. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've never actually gone and played one of those cards after having gotten it. I've just immediately exiled it from my hand. I don't know if you actively play it, if that will make you lose the objective, but just for drawing it, it will not cause you to lose that objective. That is because you do not own that card. It is not counting as part of your deck. And that's why if you have like 1 card in your deck that does not meet the requirement, it'll be 9 out of 10 because you've got 10 cards in your deck. So when this here states that you are going to be exchanging control of the first creature you own and control, it means that you have to own it and you have to control it. So for it to be something that you own and you control, it has to be a card from your deck that you have played. And then when you swap it for the first creature you don't own and control, that means that you're swapping that creature for a creature that your opponent has played from their deck or from their hand, right? But it has to have come from their deck and that they also control. So in layman's terms, you and your opponent swap creatures, but those creatures both must have come from your own decks originally. Next up, if you can't do that, so you can't meet the requirements for that, exchange the first artifact support you own without mana from your hand for the first support from your opponent's hand. So for that, you just choose which support you want in your hand that you don't want. You put it up in the front and you exchange that for the first support from your opponent's hand. Not a great ability, really. In large part, somewhat confusing, but once you get the idea down between own and control, it sort of makes sense. I wouldn't really see myself using that ability, and because then the creatures you control but don't own get +4/+4. So the creature that you've swapped, right, and any other creature that you've swapped, or any creature that you've gained from Oko's first ability, right? Those are all going to count as things that you control but don't own. Those will all get +4/+4. So all in all, a largely weak ability, not game-breaking in any way. Definitely not better than Sarkhan or Tamio or Kiora. So you can definitely go ahead and skip that walker. It'll be a fun one, I'm sure, for shenanigans. And if you don't mind paying the 650 gems, by all means, go ahead, get it. I'm sure you'll have some fun with it, but it's definitely not a very good one. Then we get the Royal Saiyans. This is a new red-blue walker. And so the first ability is discard a card, then draw 2. If the discarded card had no mana, gain 4 mana, otherwise deal 4 damage to any target. It's a decent ability, not great, not bad. Fencing Siblings. So for 12, your red creatures get 5/0 and first strike, your blue creatures get 5/0 and flying. So if your creatures are red-blue, you're giving them +10/+0 until end of turn. Once again, decent ability, not great, not bad. And then the third ability is create a Royal Inheritance token, discard a card, then draw 5. Those cards gain half of their mana. And the Royal Inheritance token is going to state that whenever you cast a red card, this support deals damage to your opponent's Planeswalker equal to the number of red cards in your hand. And whenever you cast a blue card, drain mana from the first non-creature card in your opponent's hand equal to the number of blue cards in your hand. This is a decent ability, definitely, and gaining half mana to all the cards in your hand is pretty cool, especially as if they've already got some mana, you might just get them to full. But it's not great. This definitely is not better than Rawl. It's definitely not better than any of the Bolasses. So honestly, if you have Rawl or you have one of the Bolasses, I would skip the Royal Scions also. So of the 3 walkers, Garruk you should definitely get. The other 2, you can avoid them if you want. New events. We get a bunch of them, and they look pretty good. So the Great Tournament is going to be a Coalition PvP event. There are going to be 5 nodes. The recharge time is 8 hours. Initial charge being 1 is really nice because you just hop in. It's not going to be a huge time investment from the beginning. It's going to be spread out, which is nice. And the max charge is 6, so that means that you've got a lot of time before you lose time. So it's fairly forgiving, and that's really nice. Challenge of the Courts is a PvP event. There are going to be 5 versions of it in different colors. I'm going to guess that this is going to give us different exclusive rewards for each color, and I like those types of things. It's another one where you've got an 8-hour recharge timer with 1 initial charge and 6 max charges, which is, once again, fantastic. So I'm loving that. Fables of Eldraine. It's a PvE event. There's 12 chapters of the event. So maybe 12 different versions, or just there's 12 different nodes, but getting an extra PvE event on top of both of those PvP events, including a new PvP Coalition event, is fantastic. The game desperately needs more events with how the War of the Spark events turned out, so this is great. Special offers, there's going to be more stuff you can buy. Standard is going to rotate. This is a very big deal. So the new Standard is going to include the Ravnica sets, Origins, War of the Spark, Core 20, and Eldraine. That means that we're going to be losing the Ixalan sets. We are going to be losing M19. We are going to be losing Dominaria. And yeah, I think I said M19. So that's actually a lot of cards rotating out, especially big meta cards like Blue Sun Zenith and Storm the Vault and stuff like that. So I honestly think that this rotation is going to be really good for the game, and it's going to freshen it up. So that's really nice. Minor event changes. So Trial of the Plains, you're going to get Eldraine booster packs for. Elder Spark, this is a huge quality of life improvement. 8-hour recharge instead of 6. That's amazing. That's great. For card changes, we've got card changes that are really just sort of for semantics. So Blood for Bones is going to make it so that you get different creatures. Demonic Vigor just isn't going to be messed up with tokens. And now we get to the bug fixes. I'm just going to sort of gloss over this section, but there are some really important things here. So there's a lot of things to stop crashes, and that's important. So in addition to that, the partnership objective is now going to increase when you cast cards with partner, so that should work properly in Elder Spark. The Destroyer objective in Race to Erazka should be working properly on the green node too, which is really nice. There's a few other little silly things like gems are no longer going to be converted to the opponent's colors when beginning the player's turn instead of your own on the Race to Erazka green node. A lot of losses of freezes and crashes, which is great. So we've got 2 things that aren't going to be crashing our game in iOS, and there's actually a few in Android, so that's really nice. Bedevil is going to work properly with its flash ability, which is nice. Demonic Vigor with the whole token changing thing is going to work properly. Creatures are going to not be wonkily flip-flopped around when they gain different defensive evergreens, so that's really nice. And then there was something that was really darn cool. So the front side's mana cost is no longer checked instead of the flip side's mana cost when viewing multiple spell cost objectives after casting a split card whose flip side's spell cost matches the objective. So if one side of the flip cost matches your objective, you can cast that and that will now count, whereas it used to be that it would only track for one of the sides. So that's really nice. Some more fixes. Avaricious Dragon is only going to be destroying 3 gems instead of 9. That was desperately needed. Avaricious Dragon is in a really bad place because it's really busted right now. Havoc Festival is getting fixed. Cavalier of Flames is getting fixed. When an effect that returns creatures to the battlefield after exiling them targets a token, that token is now properly exiled from the game. It doesn't come back. So this follows Paper Magic rules. If you try and flicker a token, it doesn't come back. It's just exiled. That's really nice. I like that. And then Hour of Eternity is actually getting a bit of a debuff. It used to be that you could just cast it as removal, even if you didn't have creatures in your graveyard. If I'm understanding the reading of this correctly, you will no longer be able to do that. There must be creatures in your graveyard to use it as removal also, which is a bit of a bummer, but whatever. And then I must have glossed over it, but there's one other really important thing. I'm going to scroll up really fast and see if I can find it, but it's that when a creature enters the battlefield, if upon entering the battlefield it is disabled, it will no longer trigger its enter the battlefield effects. So that is a huge buff for being able to, here we go. If a creature is disabled upon entering the battlefield, they now no longer activate their enter the battlefield triggers. So that's huge for being able to get rid of a lot of the really nasty abilities in the game for things with enter the battlefield or hasties or things like that. So this really helps for control, especially for newer players, because a lot of newer players can really rely on those disable effects. So all in all, some really good changes to the game, some really great things coming. So hopefully you're excited about this. I know I am. And if you've got any questions, you can go ahead and shoot. And I hope to see you in the next one. Oh yeah, comments.